Hi there. We're very excited for our guest today. It's Michael Johnson-Ellis, who's a dad to two children via surrogacy and is the founder of TwodadsUk, the Modern Family Show 2021, and the latest UK not-for-profit My Surrogacy Journey. He's also a fertility campaigner and sits on the patient stakeholder group for the HFEA, and also writes for IVF Babble and Cow and Gate Baby Club. Thank you so much for joining us today. Very excited about speaking to you. And Laura is going to start with the first question.
Go for it.
Thank you so much, Michael, for being here. So could you tell us a little bit more about TwodadsUk and its objectives and why you kind of started it?
Absolutely. So TwodadsUk, myself and my husband, we had our children through UK surrogacy. And when we were on our fertility journey, through all of our research in choosing that way to build our family, there was just a real lack of information and credible signposted information for intended parents that were considering surrogacy in the UK. So we wanted to create a platform that firstly showcased that having a family and being gay is absolutely possible, but also normalizing, utilizing the topic of fertility treatment, surrogacy, and same-sex parenting. So we wanted to create this platform that did all of that. So we created the Instagram and the Facebook page, and we just told our story and let everyone see that we're no different than any other parent. You know, we have the same issues, the same arguments, the same cupboards full of the same plastic crap. It was just, we're no different, but we wanted to show people that what a two-dad family looked like that had been created through surrogacy.
Yeah, and I suppose, and when you do you feel that the people you come across, like in kind of everyday life or situations, whether you take your children to nursery or whatever, do you feel that there is that sense of being treated the same as everyone else, or do you sometimes feel there is challenges there?
You know, it's getting better for sure, but we live in a very heteronormative world, and we do have to fit in to that way, which I understand. I don't necessarily like it, but I understand that's the way. That's the way of the world, and we, through the work that we do to try and make the future that little bit more inclusive for our children, or make sure that families like ours are more visible, so people know the right things to say, and also the inappropriate things to say and to ask. And I think podcasts like this are really good because we can preach to our audience until we're blue in the face. They get it, they know, they understand. The people that we need to be talking to are heterosexual parents, because they're the ones that will talk to their children about same-sex families. And so I think there are still some changes and challenges that we need to make, and equality is something through TwodadsUk that it's on our regular missions on the website, but there's still a little bit of work to do. It's not I've noticed a massive improvement in the last 5 years. It's getting easier,
but it's, I guess, it's all about completely normalizing it, so that there isn't a discussion that you need to have with children, and you don't need to feel like, oh, I don't know what to say, or what's appropriate and what's not, as you said, because it's the same, and I think that's kind of where I presume you're trying to, we're trying to get.
Yeah, and it's about and this is why I love the conversations with our eldest, Tallulah. She's 4, and she is just so beautifully tolerant of everyone, just like I'm sure your children have been as well. She doesn't use the term mum or dad. She uses the parents or grown-ups and carers. She's so good. And that hasn't necessarily come from us. That's, she sees the fact that not everyone has a mummy and a daddy, so we shouldn't assume that they have. So when Tallulah's talking about people in her class, she will always firstly say parents, and I love that. And as as grown-ups ourselves, that's how we all should be. You know,
I agree.
And my husband had been at the school gates, and we've, you know, been dropping off, and people ask, "Oh, you know, oh, aren't you good? Is she having a lie-in this morning?" And I'm like, "No." Do you mean the child's mother? Because there isn't one. And because people just assume that I'm doing a good deed. You know, mum's in bed. No, we do this every morning.
I know it's and I think that's the thing that you've hit the nail on the head there. Really, it's about, you know, I mean, there's always going to be a generation ahead of us who perhaps are much harder to change their kind of values on things, and you know, we know we want to, but it's going to be very difficult. But it's about educating the new generation. And I know with my own children that we always talk about, you know, love is love, and you know, you can find love, you know, with whoever you want to. And I, you know, there's a lot of times where I've seen myself in the play, like when they've been in the park and someone said, "Oh, you can't marry that girl, you're a girl," and my children have turned around and said, "You can marry whoever you want." And I think I would just want that, you know, you must obviously feel that too, you just want it to be the norm, and there never to be that kind of having to say, justify it, because we shouldn't be in a world where we need to, and unfortunately we still are.
We are, unfortunately, and again, I think a lot of the work that we work so hard to do is so that when Tallulah gets to senior school, families like ours are more visible, and we don't need an Instagram account called Two Dads. You know, but by usualizing, which isn't even a word, I don't think, but by usualizing our family unit, Tallulah's not going to be known as the girl with two dads. That's how we want to. We've got a long way to go, but I think that's where we want to take it, and we're only going to do that as a group of individuals and parents and adults to push that forward.
Absolutely. So in terms of kind of work, is most people, when they think of maternity leave, obviously when people go on parental leave, often there's that term maternity leave, which is much more at the forefront. So what was your experience of returning to work after surrogacy in terms of your perhaps employer and the way they viewed your parental journey? Was it kind of the same as other people, or do you think it was viewed differently? What was your experience?
It was definitely viewed differently. And I obviously was going on leave for surrogacy, and we didn't have a policy that was written and that was valid for surrogacy leave. And the lady that worked in HR just didn't understand, and I get it, because surrogacy is a very unique topic, and you know, it's becoming more common. But at the time when I went on my leave, you know, they were constantly calling ACAS and understanding, you know, what do we do? So, and they kept telling me, well, it's just the same as adoption leave, so it's, you know, it's fine. And I'm like, okay, it might be the same amount of time, but please stop calling it adoption leave, because it isn't. And that was really frustrating. You know, it was really just pigeonhole in the type of leave you were taking. And I remember a conversation about how much time I was going to take off, and I was like, I don't know, really. I might take 6 months. I might extend that and take a year. This is my first child. You know, I want to. We've been on a 3-year journey to get to this point. I'll take as long as I need to, really. And I remember that conversation just being a bit surprising and a bit like, oh, okay. And I had a really busy role, a board role, you know, in London, and it just wasn't, I don't think, to be expected that a man should be taking a vast amount of time off work, and I felt that pressure. And as a result, I took 6 weeks. And that's one of my biggest regrets, because I went back to work at 6 weeks. I lived in Birmingham, worked in London. I was up at 4, home at 11, and I commuted. And it was hard, you know, Tallulah wasn't quite sleeping through, and we were knackered, and my mom was having to have her in the day. And it's just a bit disappointing from my point of view that, you know, that how I managed that. But I definitely saw I experienced, I think, what I feel a lot of women experience when they have children. And I, for the first time, saw how challenging it is as a new parent to then try and return back to a work environment, having had children. You are viewed so differently. And you, I found that a real struggle.
In what way do you think that you're viewed differently?
Well, my priority isn't my work anymore. Whereas I worked for work. I lived for work. And, you know, I was the first in the office. I was the last to leave the office. That wasn't important to me anymore. I couldn't wait to get home to feed Tallulah, to read her a story. The moment she had a cough or a sniffle, I wasn't going to work because she's not well. I'm going to stay at home with her. And your priorities shift, and they see that, and they're like, "Oh, okay, you're going to work from home again today?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I am, because my daughter needs me. There's an appointment." So yeah, I definitely saw, and not necessarily from my boss, because my boss was really supportive, but certainly other people within the organisation viewed me differently, for sure.
I think that's a common problem from other people we've spoken to as new parents going back after having a child, because, you know, there's this, maybe the culture's changing now for whatever reason, but there's that thing, isn't it? Certainly from what we've been looking at about when you return after children and you kind of think, I've got to leave the office a bit earlier today because I've got to do a pickup, or I've got to get to a parents' evening, that people will still maybe have that slight sense of prejudice towards you of, oh, all right then, you know, and or if you're part-time, enjoy your day off, and you're like, it's not really a day off. It's not a day off at all. So I think it's a common problem for most parents, I think. Do you think though that you might have been treated differently if it wasn't surrogacy, or do you think that wasn't really the issue? It's more just about a working parent?
Yeah, I don't really think, you know, people had a lot of questions about surrogacy, you know, what it was, what did it mean, how did it happen? So there was I think a lot of my colleagues went on a bit of a journey to learn about surrogacy, which was nice, because that's part of the, you know, wider piece. So people understood what surrogacy isn't. So it's not buying babies. It's not snatching babies from surrogates. It's, you know, it's not all this weird stuff. It's not The Handmaid's Tale.
I bet you're asked a multitude of weird questions.
Yeah, so you do get asked the weird and wonderful. So I think what was unique was I was a man and I was gay and I was becoming a father. That was unusual. I was the only person in our organisation that there were 2 or 3 other gay men, but I was the only one that had children. And I think, you know, that's still, you know, it's not really that common for gay men to have kids when you look at sort of numbers, but it's certainly increasing. And I think it's employers are having to adjust to that.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, if you could give any advice to any other people thinking of surrogacy, what would be your most important learning from the experience?
You know, research is so important, and it's a journey, and it really can be costly, it can be emotionally draining, but if you stay focused and stay supported, and if you're choosing to use an organization to help you, brilliant. If you're not, brilliant. But persevere with it. You know, when it feels like it's not going too well, or when it feels like it's not going to happen, just get your head down and just persevere with it, because it will. And it just doesn't feel like it at times. You know, fertility treatment can be a dark place. It can be really isolating. It can be incredibly stressful. But you know, your time will come. Just, you know, make sure you've got a great support network and use them. You know,
I think that's the key, isn't it? And also being willing to talk about it as well. I guess there's so many people that go through it, whether it's through surrogacy or fertility, you know, infertility, IVF, whatever it is. And the fact that there's some people still don't want to talk about it and feel, I don't know if there's some form of oh, I don't know why, it's not happening for us, and
it's a shame, really.
And actually, I think it makes the situation worse, because people don't understand what you're going through. So not that people can help you, but that people can be more, sympathetic to what you're going through. And I think it's a bit more, maybe more cathartic to actually explain and tell people what you're going through.
Massively. 1 in 6 people struggle to conceive. 1 in 6 people are struggling with infertility. And that's why we've done a lot of work with people like Ferring Pharmaceuticals, and why we write for Karen Gate or IVF Babble. And it's to there should be no shame in having IVF or having fertility treatment. We all need to be talking about it more, and people are getting better. But I think the trying to conceive, or the TTC community, is huge. And when I discovered how supportive that network of people is, it's a community that I think I fully now embrace, and anyone that is on that journey should also look into the various support mechanisms to help them on their journey.
Definitely.
Can I just ask one more quick question? What do you because you implied that obviously same-sex relationships or surrogacy wasn't necessarily treated in the same way as natural parents in relation to the workplace and time off and the expectations. So what do you feel the workplace should now be doing to ensure that there is equality, I guess, for working parents going back, whatever the situation might be?
I think, if you're creating your family the way I chose to, then that's going to involve fertility treatment. And there's a lot of appointments. There's a lot of scans. We supported our surrogate throughout all of her appointments as well. So we met her at the clinic. We would just make sure she was okay afterwards. So whether that was a scan, or whether that was just a general appointment, or an embryo transfer, or a blood test, we went on those appointments with her, because we should do that. She's doing this for us. So
still part of your journey.
Workplaces don't recognise fertility treatment as being valid reasons to book time off. And some great employers do, but some are like, no, you need to book a day's holiday for that. And I'm like, okay, well, how's that going to work? Because this is a hospital appointment for my unborn child.
Of course.
But it was no, that's annual leave. And fertility treatment is treated that way. People think it's a luxury to have IVF, and some people will go, and they view it that way, rather than this is no different than a medical appointment.
Of course.
And I shouldn't be taking annual leave for that. This is completely different.
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting. I think there's so much the workplaces need to do to get to a sense of equality, whatever kind of area it goes down, because we've been talking to people about kind of rights for dads and for women who go back, and like there is so much that needs to be done. And I think, as Laura said, if we can keep talking about it and trying to get change, I think that hopefully, as we said, when our children are having children, life and jobs and workplaces will be very different. I mean, they are from probably when our parents, had children. So that, we can only but move forward and hope that change will happen. I think with flexible hours, we've been talking about how the pandemic has almost given a little bit more flexibility on that, but it shouldn't take a pandemic for that to happen.
No, it really shouldn't. And I dropped my hours when I returned back to work. I remember dropping a day. I did my hours in very long days, but I dropped a day, and I remember that conversation being not pleasant. But yeah, there's still a lot of work to be done, and fair play for highlighting this sort of stuff, because I think it's really, really important.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us today. I could talk actually for hours on this. I want to know more about your journey myself, because I just find it really interesting, and because we don't know enough when we're not in that situation. But thank you so much for sharing part of that, and thanks for coming in. I really appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks for inviting me.